Alright, let's talk about wildlife tourism. You've probably seen those breathtaking photos and videos online, tourists riding in open jeeps across the African savanna, binoculars in hand, eyes wide with excitement as they spot a pride of lions lounging under an acacia tree. Or maybe you've dreamed of trekking through dense jungles, hoping to catch a glimpse of a rare bird or a family of gorillas in the mist. Wildlife tourism is booming, and it's easy to see why. The chance to witness wild animals in their natural habitats is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for many people. And it's become a major part of the global travel industry. You know, those trips where you get up close with elephants in Thailand or snap a selfie with a sloth in Costa Rica. Maybe you've seen friends post photos of themselves feeding giraffes, swimming with dolphins, or even cuddling tiger cubs. These experiences look magical on social media, and they're often sold as a way to connect with nature and support conservation. But have you ever stopped to wonder what's really going on behind the scenes? Is wildlife tourism always as innocent and beneficial as it seems? It sounds like a dream, but is it actually helping animals or doing more harm than good? The truth is, wildlife tourism is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can raise awareness about endangered species and generate much-needed funds for conservation. On the other, it can put animals at risk, disrupt their natural behaviors, and even contribute to their decline if not managed responsibly. So, let's dig a little deeper into the pros and cons of wildlife tourism and what you can do to make sure your adventures are truly making a positive impact. On the plus side, wildlife tourism can bring in serious cash for conservation. In many parts of the world, protected areas and wildlife reserves rely heavily on tourism revenue to fund their operations. Entrance fees, guided tours, and donations from visitors help pay for park rangers, anti-poaching patrols, habitat restoration, and educational programs. Without this income, many conservation projects would struggle to survive. In fact, some of the most successful wildlife recovery stories, like the mountain gorillas of Rwanda and Uganda, are directly linked to well-managed tourism programs that channel money back into local communities and conservation efforts. When your dollars go to reputable sanctuaries and eco-tours, local communities have a real reason to protect animals and their habitats. Instead of seeing wildlife as a threat to crops or livestock, people start to view them as valuable assets that can bring jobs and income. This shift in perspective can be a game changer, especially in regions where poverty and human-wildlife conflict are major challenges. Ecotourism can create employment for guides, drivers, cooks, and artisans, while also supporting schools, clinics, and infrastructure. In short, responsible wildlife tourism can help build a future where both people and animals thrive. It can be a win-win. Wild animals stay wild, and people get jobs. But here's the flip side. Not all wildlife tourism is created equal, and the line between ethical and exploitative can be blurry. Sometimes, the demand for close encounters leads to practices that are anything but natural. Animals may be taken from the wild, kept in captivity, or forced to interact with tourists in ways that cause them stress and suffering. The pressure to deliver unforgettable experiences can push operators to cut corners, ignore animal welfare, or even break the law. Not every tour is ethical. In some places, animals are kept in cramped cages or enclosures, unable to roam or express their natural behaviors. They might be chained, declawed, or drugged to make them easier to handle. Some are forced to perform tricks, pose for photos, or give rides to tourists, all for the sake of entertainment and profit. These practices can have devastating effects on the animal's physical and mental health, and they often go unnoticed by well-meaning visitors. Sometimes animals are kept in tiny enclosures, forced to perform or interact with humans way too much. Imagine being a wild animal, used to roaming vast landscapes, suddenly confined to a small space and surrounded by strangers every day. The constant noise, handling, and lack of privacy can be incredibly stressful. For some species, like big cats or primates, this can lead to abnormal behaviors, pacing, self-harm, or aggression. Even seemingly harmless activities, like petting or feeding, can disrupt natural instincts and make animals dependent on humans. This can stress them out, mess with their health, and honestly, wreck their wild instincts. Animals that are constantly exposed to people may lose their fear of humans, making them more vulnerable to poaching or conflict if released back into the wild. Others may develop health problems from poor diets, lack of exercise, or exposure to diseases carried by tourists. In the worst cases, animals are bred in captivity solely for tourism, with little regard for their welfare or conservation value. Just imagine how it feels for an animal that's meant to roam free. So what's the answer? How can we enjoy the wonders of wildlife tourism without causing harm? The key is to be an informed and responsible traveler. It starts with understanding the difference between ethical and exploitative experiences, and being willing to ask tough questions before you book a tour or visit an attraction. If you want to help, do your homework. Research the companies and organizations you're considering. Look for certifications or partnerships with reputable conservation groups. Read reviews from other travelers and pay attention to red flags like promises of guaranteed animal encounters, hands-on experiences, or performances. Ask about the animal's origins, living conditions, and what happens to them when they are not on display. Look for tours that focus on observing, not touching animals in their natural habitat. The best wildlife experiences are those that respect the animal's space and allow them to behave naturally. This might mean watching from a distance, using binoculars or cameras with zoom lenses, and following the guidance of trained naturalists or rangers. It's about being a guest in their world, not the other way around. Avoid places that promise hands-on experiences or wild animal selfies. These attractions often put animals at risk for the sake of a quick photo op. Remember, a truly wild animal should never be so tame that you can hug it or pose for a selfie. If you see animals being handled, dressed up, or made to perform, it's a sign that something isn't right. Choose experiences that put animal welfare first, even if it means missing out on that perfect Instagram shot. Bottom line, wildlife tourism can be a force for good, but only if we choose wisely. When done right, it can support conservation, empower communities, and inspire a new generation of wildlife advocates. But it's up to us as travelers to demand better and make choices that reflect our values. Every ticket, every tour, every photo matters. By supporting ethical operators and spreading the word, we can help create a future where wildlife tourism benefits everyone, animals, people, and the planet. Next time you travel, remember, respect is the real key to protecting the wild. It's not about how close you can get, but how much you can learn, appreciate, and support the incredible creatures that share our world. Be curious, be compassionate, and be a voice for animals who can't speak for themselves. Your choices matter more than you think. Thanks for watching, and go make a difference. Whether you're planning your next adventure or sharing what you've learned with others, remember that every action counts. Together we can ensure that wildlife tourism is a friend, not a foe, to the animals and habitats we love. Safe travels and keep exploring responsibly.